Bless us all who gather here, the loving family I.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Aurora, Mickey, and from me. Well, today we have some not very important matters, entertaining, lightweight, sort of Meganian stuff, not of really vast importance. But we also, at the end of this, have what is arguably the most important subject I'm ever going to address. So I'm going to answer a question that is exceedingly important. And I have gone to considerable lengths to get accurate, positive, well-informed information. But we will start with the trivialities of life, which, let's remember, are very entertaining. Donna Alexander says, another award, the RFK Award. Do you know anything about this announcement? I do. I've been speaking to America. I do. But since Frida Smith also addressed this same issue, I will read out her question as well. Robert F. Kennedy Humanitarian Honours for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex just announced the 11th of October. They have agreed to take the honour. If you Google RFK Humanitarian Awards, you will see all the recipients, all liberals, all Democrats, Obama, Hillary, Biden, to name a few. No conservatives welcomed. Recipients selected in May. Megabucks and son Harry just accepted October the 11th. Do you think promoted them at a later date? What was their contribution to the RFK humanitarian event? Event date is same time Prince William and Princess Catherine will be in Boston. Is this another dig to overshadow them? Or jealousy? Or coincidence? Well, I did do some checking in. I'm sorry, I'm very naughty. I delved deeply. And I discovered something very fundamental. Second rate equals second rate, otherwise known as water seeks its own level. I gather there's a lot of competition between the John F. Kennedy Awards and the John F. Kennedy Charity and the Robert F. Kennedy, because if we remember, John F. Kennedy was the president. Robert F. Kennedy was his younger brother who was appointed Attorney General, double-crossed the mafia, Sam Giancana, etc., who had helped to get President Kennedy elected, gratis their father Joe, sort of finagling things in Boston, whence they came. And of course, there are those who think that the mafia got rid of JFK. Well, evidently there's a lot of competition between the two branches of the Kennedy family, and JFK's lot have got William and Catherine on the 2nd of December. The Earthshot Awards, inspired by the moon landings and President Kennedy. Then on the 6th of December, there will be Meghan and Harry being given an award. Oh dear, I've got to read it out. The Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Awards for 2022. The Ripple of Hope Award laureates in recognition of their work on racial justice, mental health, and other social impact initiatives through their Archewell, however they pronounce it today. That award has been offered to Harry and Meghan, and they accepted it in March, according to the press release just put out by the Robert F. Kennedy Awards. Well, I notice that Frida Smith implies that the award was only accepted rather recently. Well, I'm not going to address that anomaly because I think the whole thing is a hoot. I will say, in fairness to the Robert F. Kennedy Awards, and yes, I do concede it's all heavily Democratic Party, and if they were really serious awards, they would actually be also honoring those who are not of the same political persuasion as they are. I just make that point for what it's worth. But we don't live in an ideal world, and if people want to push their own kind, well, who am I to say they shouldn't when tribalism is a natural force? Although, of course, they are the persuasion that then says that tribalism should never apply except with their own kind. But if you're tribalist, you're a wicked person. I think it's laughable. What have Harry and Meghan contributed to racial justice? They have accused the British people and the British royal family of racism unfairly, and they have caused no end of trouble in the Commonwealth. So, racial justice? What racial justice are they being awarded for? Racial stoking of the fires? Yes. Mental health? Well, they are archetypes of what mental health would look like if it were used in the correct terminology. Mental dysfunction and other social impact initiatives through their Archewell Foundation. Archewell Robert F. Kennedy Awards. Didn't you read that their total income last year for their charity endeavors was under $50,000? Where is their social impact except in the newspapers? But I get it. You needed a name. And in March, when you made the approach, you thought Harry and Meghan still had a bit of a name. Also, you are Democrats. Ken Sunshine's a Democrat. They were still Sunshine Sachs clients. There was no squabble about the $2 million that was outstanding. Well, There might have been rumblings and ructions, but nothing to approach the breach that has been effected. So, I'm sure that Kench Sunshine and Sunshine Sachs helped out with this one. I somehow don't think, though, that they're going to be helping out with many other initiatives of this kind. And I think we are seeing the tail end of the storm. And when things settle down, there will be evident devastation. And I don't think the Robert F. Kennedy or the John F. Kennedy or anybody else is going to be awarding them any prizes of this nature. But let's wait and see. Sandra Gill says, Lady C, what are your thoughts on Mike Tindall going into the jungle? Do you think he will last to the end, maybe even win? Well, to those of you who are not British, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here is the biggest show in Great Britain. Every year it wins the National Television Awards as the best show, nominated by and voted upon by the public. It won again a few days ago. It always wins. It won when I was in there. It wins every year. It won before, it's won since. Let's see what happens next year. It's won for, I think, 21 years running now. And Mike Tindall has, according to the PR, been signed up to go into the jungle. It is said for £150,000, which doesn't strike me as that much. However, I don't want to be catty because I like the I'm a Celebrity people and they like me. In fact, they like me so much that when they were doing the publicity for the best of I'm a Celebrity, they announced that I was going to be in the jungle in South Africa for that show, even though I hadn't said yes. And I'm not going to be naughty. I'm not going to tell anybody whether I did appear or didn't appear, because it's not going to be broadcast for a while. And I don't want to spoil it for I'm a Celebrity. But Mike Tindall going in, I think it would be a wonderful thing. He's very down to earth. He's a very regular guy. He's very popular. He's very physical. He's strong and sane and sensible. I think he stands a good chance of being crowned King of the Jungle if he goes in. And I think if he goes in, fine. I think to an extent, some mingling of the royal and the celebrity worlds is desirable, but not too much. And I think this is the sort of thing that would be desirable, because he will acquit himself well. It's a very popular show, and nobody will be able to say anything negative about him. I think it's a win-win. It's a win-win for the royal family, because, of course, to those of you who don't know, Mike Tindall is married to the King's niece, Zara Phillips, now Zara Tindall. And he's a former rugby player, and everybody who knows him says he's just a great guy. So, good luck tonight, Tindall, and I think great on Anton Deck for landing that prize, if indeed they have, because you need to be careful what you believe in life, especially where PR is concerned, because it can be called public relations, or it can also be called puerile rubbish. Donna Saunders says, "Dear Lady C and all the lovely four-legged creatures, woof woof meow. I love your program and your great clothes and jewelry and your awesome castle." Thank you. One short question. I heard today that the new episodes of The Crown has an episode portraying Prince Philip having an affair with one of the Mountbattens. Do you think Harry could be responsible for telling Netflix gossip such as this? Thank you and bless you for helping to defend the royal family. I'm American, but have a special fondness for them. Well, in fairness to Harry, my dear, may I make the point that for many years now, people have said that Prince Philip had an affair with X, with Y, with Z, and the latest chatter, the last of the long line of women he was supposed to have had an affair with was Penny Mountbatten. Penny Mountbatten is the present Countess Mountbatten of Burma. She is married to Lord Mountbatten's grandson, Norton, who is the present Earl. Lord Mountbatten was Prince Philip's uncle, Lord Louis Mountbatten, who became the first Earl Mountbatten of Burma. Lord Mountbatten's mother was born a Battenberg princess, the sister of the first Marquis of Milford Haven, Prince Louis of Battenberg. It is Prince Philip's family. Prince Philip was brought up as a little boy after his mother was put in the institution. First of all, by his uncle George Milford Haven, who was the second Lord Mountbatten, the second Marquis of Milford Haven. He was born Prince George of Battenberg. Then he became George Mountbatten in 1917. Then when his father was made Marquis of Milford Haven, he became the Earl of Medina. And when his father died, he became the second Marquis of Milford Haven. His wife, Nadezhda Torby, she was born Countess Nadezhda Torby. She was the daughter of Grand Duke Michael of Russia and Countess Torby, who was a great, if I remember correctly, anyway, a great something granddaughter of Pushkin, the great Russian writer who incidentally was fully acknowledged to be a person of color. George and Nada brought up Prince Philip. They were his primary guardians in England. When George died of bone cancer, age 45, I think it was a horrendous shock to everybody in the family. And at that point, his younger brother, Dickie, who was Lord Louis Mountbatten at the time, took over and became his effective guardian. Prince Philip was always close to the Mountbatten family because not only was his mother a member of it, but that's the family that effectively brought him up. People are now saying that because he was great friends with Penny She was, first of all, Penny Eastwood. She started working in Prince Charles's office. She worked with a friend of mine in Prince Charles's office. They were both lady clerks. And the friend of mine who worked with her couldn't understand how she did so well, Penny, and this friend of mine didn't. She couldn't understand that there were huge differences. But anyway, Penny Eastwood was from a rich family actually, but nouveau riche, but she's exemplary. One of her best friends is one of my oldest friends, and she is a great girl. The idea that she and Prince Philip were having a true affair is something that I covered in my book, The Queen's Marriage. And I have to tell you, I saw no evidence of it. His previous great girlfriend, in quotes, had been Sacha Abercorn. Sacha Abercorn was also a relation of Prince Philip, and in fact of the Mountbattens, because Sacha Abercorn's mother, Gina Verner, was the daughter of Lady Zia Verner, who was the daughter of Grand Duke Michael of Russia and Countess Torby. You begin to see the links in the family. And Sacha was not only a member of the family, but she and Prince Philip were great friends. She died about 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 4. Very young, she died of cancer. She was a very nice woman. Her sister is the present Dowager Duchess of Westminster. And she used to say perfectly frankly when people asked her if she and Prince Philip were having an affair, she said, absolutely not. We are just great friends. Prince Philip always loved having attractive girls around him. He was the only boy with 4 elder sisters. He was used to women. He loved women. He was fabulous with women. He also liked men, I've got to tell you. He had great male friends, but he always had the female equivalent of a Cavaliere Servante. It's a very courtly thing, and I went into this in my book, The Queen's Marriage, at some length to try to explain the context. And the Queen was perfectly happy about it all, and she saw no reason why Prince Philip shouldn't have female as well as male friends. I think, of course, the Crown is going to scrape the bottom of the barrel. They always do. They are sensationalistic and vulgar to the nth degree. In fact, let's just say they are sensationalistic vulgarians. And they go with rumour. They don't go with fact. Did Harry say anything to help to confirm it? Well, we know what Harry's track record is in terms of loyalty, don't we? So, and Harry, of course, has had all the knowledge that he used to possess flipped on its head, remember? He didn't know he was trapped until Meghan told him. God knows what else Meghan, in her great wisdom, has told him. Gen XX says, the world has no use for economy in a royal event. The rest of us don't have pomp and circumstance in our lives. If royalty doesn't put on a display, we're left with only celebrities, fake royalty, put on the uniforms, ermine, and jewels, and display them for the world. Many other people said the same thing in different ways, and I thought I would just make that point by reading out this, because people want a splendid coronation. That's what they want. A splendid coronation. They don't want a drab affair. And I hope the king will oblige. Leslie McShane Mitchell says, "It has come to light the two women, mother and daughter, who organised the Manchester Youth Rally are being investigated for funds that have been paid to them. This is the third organisation Meghan and Harry have been associated with that has been caught with their hands in the cookie jar." And what is my comment? Well, Kate Robertson and her daughter Ella Mackay are indeed being investigated by the Charity Commission as a result of their extraordinarily high fees and the high earnings, especially at a time when COVID meant that they effectively were doing little or no work and there were no events to manage. But let us put this in its context. One Young World is a youth political organization along the lines of the Hitler Youth. Now, you could say there was nothing wrong with the Hitler Youth. It was simply rallying the youth of the day to a cause that they wanted like-minded people to be a part of. And to that extent, there is no harm in One Young World either. It is a very woke, very, if you don't agree with them, you should be cancelled type of organization. But they are basically a youth rallying political organization that has taken advantage of the charity laws to give themselves charitable status. Well, One Young World's chief executive, Kate Robertson, was awarded £450,000 pay for the 18 months to June 2021, despite the pandemic interrupting its summits, which are the biggest, in fact, some people would say the only real source of its revenue. Her daughter, Ella Mackay, or Mackay, whichever way she pronounces it, one of the company's stroke charities, two managing directors, got £194,543 pay and benefits for the same period. My goodness, they're worth an awful lot of money, aren't they? Well, let's examine where One Young World gets its revenue from, because it's not done off donations. So delegates are charged £3,150 for a pass that includes lunch and dinner. There are also accommodation costs that would amount to £4,210. These fees are separate from exhibition prices. They are the main sources of funding for the organization, which of course had practically no revenue during the pandemic. And the question that has been asked is, why was Mrs. Robertson's pro rata remuneration of £293,333 in the 2021 period, noticeably higher than most, if not all, of the larger UK charities. For instance, she got £60,000 more than the pay package enjoyed by the head of Cancer Research UK, which employs 3,873 staff, while she employs only 33. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Well, we should not forget what Meghan said. And let me see if I can find what Meghan said. Because, yes, Meghan told the delegates, remember when she and H appeared, that she was thrilled Harry was able to join her to witness firsthand my respect for this organization, which she had been affiliated with since 2014. It is a youth rallying organization that networks politically. Now, I question whether any political organization should be allowed to benefit from charitable status and leave it at that. Rain Dancer says, Dear Lady C, the great and powerful Wizard of Oz, Meghan Markle, informed Harry he was trapped as a prince of the United Kingdom. And furthermore, so was his poor brother and father. Yet they were not aware. Sadly, the great and powerful Oz did not inform them. My question, would it not be emotionally traumatizing for Harry to witness his beloved father's entrapment at the coronation to the point of no return? Your thoughts, please. Oh dear. Rain Dancer, my thoughts are you're very witty. My thoughts are you're very on the nose, very apposite. I don't know why Harry and Meghan would, because remember, they're very retiring people who don't like publicity. Remember, every time he sees a camera go click, it throws him right back to the trauma of his past. So maybe he's going to be willing to think of himself. He should be thinking of his well-being, his his mental health, and foregoing the trauma of witnessing his father's perpetual entrapment. Or maybe they're going to show how noble they are, and how self-sacrificing, and how wonderful. Because remember, one act of compassion at a time. I mean, don't take my word for it. Take the R.F. Kennedy Awards, the Robert F. Kennedy Awards, remember? Harry and Meghan have made such contributions to the world, despite their charity earning less than $50,000. And none of it came out of their own personal pockets. How does that work? Where did the money come from? Maybe there was never any to give, and maybe nothing got given. That's a thought, isn't it? Well, I think Harry should be encouraged to be true to the traumatized aspect of himself that he has been sharing with the world, and save himself the onerous task of attending his father's coronation. Oh dear, I think I've just got myself into huge trouble with Meghan. That's going to deprive her of a photo op. My God. Mr. DeMille, I'm not going to have another close-up. Got to get rid of that cow lady, Colin Campbell. Gloria W. says, Dear Lady C, do you have knowledge why or an opinion regarding setting the coronation on a Jewish Sabbath? King Charles has always espoused religious inclusion. Thank you. Gloria W., that's a very interesting observation that you have made, and I would like to make one that will relieve you of any anxiety you might have on the subject. A coronation is a religious and a spiritual activity. It's like going to Mass, going to the synagogue. It's done in a church. It's a religious ceremony. Religious ceremonies can be done on any day of the week, and you do not disrespect anybody who has differing religious opinions if you do so. I hope that answers the question, but it's a very interesting observation that you have made. Riley Morgan says, will Harry and Meghan be working the coronation for Netflix and Spotify? Riley Morgan, you're naughty. I tell you, if I were Meghan, what I'd be doing, well, you know, that father-in-law of mine, he wants us to wear coronation robes with ermine. Well, everybody knows that I'm just so enlightened that one roast chicken at a time, I have to be vegan. So I'm going to have faux ermine and make it announced that I'm having faux ermine because I'm not like all those lords and ladies and dukes and duchesses and princes and princesses and kings and queens who kill animals. No, aside from when I'm roasting chicken in more ways than one. I'm vegan, so I think we'll have a Netflix program, and we can also have a Spotify podcast on the same subject. Oh, the traumas and oh, the difficulties. Oh, it's so difficult being a duchess. I've got to reconcile my principles with all those arcane practices, evil practices, killing animals, getting diamonds out of the ground, wearing diamonds, of course, my diamonds from Salman, Mohammed bin Salman, they don't count. They're blood diamonds. Blood diamonds aren't the same as regular diamonds. Blood diamonds are fine because they've been washed away with the pain of people. And remember, I'm somebody who relates compassionately to the suffering of other people. And then, well, I'm afraid my veganism doesn't extend to my feet. So I'm going to have really fabulous shoes. Now, who should I go to? Ferragamo? That's very old hat, isn't it? Oh. Louboutin? Should I do Louboutin? Oh, I don't know. Who's going to give me the cheapest shoes? In fact, who's going to give me shoes and pay me to wear them? That's the question I need to ask. And my dress, that should be worth at least one program on its own. And on Spotify, I can speak to various designers. Of course, the one I'm going to choose is, she's got to be a woman of color. And doesn't really matter what she designs because I'm the one who's gonna tell her what to do, because that's what I always do. Look at my fabulous wedding dress, the knockoff of Princess Angela of Liechtenstein's. Hers fit well, mine fit better, because mine just glided over my body like my body wasn't there. Well, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't. What more can I say? What more can I say? Oh dear, oh dear. Netflix and Spotify. Meghan's resourceful. She should be able to milk a good 2 or 3 programs out of that for each of her enterprises. Blue Sky Eyes says, if Meghan is crazy, then what is her excuse? Sorry, if Meghan is not crazy, then what is her excuse? Blue Sky Eyes 7. She doesn't need an excuse. She's Meghan. I'm Meghan Markle, proud, confident woman of colour, royal duchess. I believe in waffles, roast chicken, crocodile. Remember Archie's first words: crocodile, waffles. I don't need an excuse. I'm the most wonderful person that God put on this earth. What do I need an excuse for? I'm me, the great and glorious me. Look at me, how fabulous I am. Just look at me. And if you don't think I am, there's something wrong with you, because I know I am. Every day when I look in the mirror tells me, when I say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of us all? The mirror says, you used to be Megsy baby until you browned up with bronzer. But you're still the most beautiful. You've got the best legs in town. Yes, you do. They go on forever. I don't need to take your word for it. I can see. I'm your mirror image. The point is, she doesn't have an excuse. Meg Donnelly says, I used to babysit for a psychiatrist. He told me the difference between personality disorders and mental illness is mental illness cannot be turned off and on. And that is a wonderful observation to make. Because I've tried to, in my cack-handed way, make the same observation in my last broadcast, which was that people who are crazy, in quotes, people who are suffering from a mental illness, people who are psychotic, can't turn on and off. They can't dip in and out of their choices. But people with personality disorders can and do dip in and out. They know what reality is. They know what the truth is. They know what good and bad behavior are. They simply don't care. The rules apply to you and me, but don't apply to them. And therefore, if it suits them to pretend to be crazy, they'll pretend to be crazy. They love breaking the rules. They're not doing it because they're crazy. They're doing it because the rules, as far as they're concerned, don't apply to them. So they are dipping in and out. They choose when to exploit the situation to their benefit. Mad people don't. Insane people don't. Mentally ill people don't. They can't put on and throw off the cloak of mental illness the way disordered personalities can and do. That, I think, is something we need to cling on to. This encapsulates the reality. W. L. Kokal says, Lady C, love your videos. I'm reading your book, The Real Diana. It's shocking. I feel Meghan Markle read it and is using it as a blueprint for the avenues she is taking. Now I could list more good about Princess Di that I cannot find in Meg's to date. But that being said, there are many times I could interchange Diana's name with Meg's and the story fits. I felt Di was rarely just coming into her own doing positive things when she died. Meg's being in her 40s is acting like 19, 20-year-old young Princess Diana. See no hope for Meg's. I think H can be saved. He does have his mother's empathy and compassion if Meg's doesn't kill that trait in him. Again, you're the best. Your thoughts? I think that's a very shrewd observation on your part. I think that, well, I have been told that Meghan has said that she has read and has used my Diana, the real Diana, posthumous biography as a template. How true that is, I don't know. But certainly the replication is so pronounced that it's too coincidental to be a coincidence. Let's put it that way. And you make a very valid point. Meghan became a duchess at the same age that Diana died. And also, Meghan has none of Diana's redeeming virtues. None. Belinda Alsop says, is there an American equivalent of Argyll versus Argyll that would stop Harry's wife from writing a tell-all book? No, there isn't. Fortunately for Harry and Trevor Engelson, because the question from American Eagle is, Dear Lady C, interesting to hear about the possibility of Harry being sued by Meghan if he wrote a book about her. Is Trevor in the same situation if he goes ahead with his book? If so, we're going to miss out on lots of information. Laugh out loud. Well, fortunately, Trevor is not in the same situation. There is no Argyll versus Argyll precedent in American law. And because they are public figures, the laws of defamation are at a much higher bar than they would otherwise be. Because in the United States of America, if you are in the public eye, if you are going to sue for defamation, you have to prove malice. No matter what Trevor Engelson wrote about Meghan Markle, she wouldn't be able to prove it was malice. Because her father and sister and brother will be able to confirm that everything he said was the truth. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. The pickles we find ourselves in when we dump on everybody from a great height. Just get rid of them, left, right, and center. Well, in fact, slap them, slap them, slap them, slap them, slap them away. Somehow Rachel Zane's technique isn't working that well, is it? Now we come to the really important matter, something that could affect each and every one of us to a lesser or greater extent. Certainly, if you are European, to a very great extent. And if you are American, to a less great extent. But it would still affect Americans. The question from Rosa Odin is, I wish Lady C would comment upon Russia, Mr. Putin, and Ukraine. And I'm going to comment. I'm going to comment because I think this is the most important issue facing us in the world today. And it does not behoove any of us to play ostrich. We hopefully can use our voices to be heard for the betterment of humanity and the betterment of each and every one of us who is alive at present. Sir Alex Younger, a former soldier who was the head of MI6 from 2014 to 2020, has made it absolutely clear that we, the West, are flirting with disaster and that we are making it almost impossible for Putin to not back down. He is but one of many well-informed people who have been contributing to the debate recently. People of intelligence, and I now include President Macron in that number, because although I often don't like what President Macron does, in this instance I do. President Macron is refusing to allow France to be herded into the bullpen of warmongering. And I think that is to the good. We also have Tulsi Gabbard, who has just resigned from the Democratic Party and issued a grave warning to fellow Democrats in the United States. And for what it's worth, she is mixed race. So people can't say that she's this white woman who, remember what Harry and Meghan said, they didn't want any middle-aged white people commenting on their Oprah interview. Well, Tulsi Gabbard, they can't play the race card with them. There is Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Professor Jeffrey Sachs, he's a professor at Columbia University. He's a former UN advisor. He is a global financial expert. He is an economist. We have Colonel Douglas McGregor, who to some people is very right-wing, but he, whether irrespective of his politics, he was a very successful soldier in the American army. Listen to what he is saying about what's happening in Ukraine. Yes, he was nominated by Trump as ambassador to Germany and was blocked by the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations. He was also a senior advisor to the acting Secretary of Defense. You know, you have all of these people making the point that Russia is not being portrayed in the media accurately. As Professor Jeffrey Sachs said, you can't believe a word that comes out of Washington or the mainstream media. Now, when you have one of the most eminent economists on earth, who has been a special advisor to more than one Secretary General of the United Nations, and one of the leading members of the army as well, who has, you know, they say things like, we shouldn't believe what we are being told. They are saying it. The Russians aren't saying it. They're saying it. They are saying that Russia has not thrown its might into Ukraine because Russia was hoping for a negotiated peace. Russia, according to them, is an Orthodox nation, as indeed is Ukraine. And there are political as well as religious reasons as to why Russia was hoping to have a negotiated peace. They also make the point that President Zelensky, whatever his heroic stances and status in the Western media, is caught between a rock and a hard place, and that really he is not anybody who is interested in peace and a lasting peace it would behoove you to listen too closely and take him without examining what he's saying in depth. There are, according to people I have spoken to, and I've been speaking to people at very high levels in the United States of America, in both political parties, not one, both. They are all gravely concerned that there are hawks in the military-industrial complex who would like a nuclear war in Ukraine. This is insanity. They know it's insanity. They being the people who've been speaking to me. The hawks don't realize it's insanity because they're not going to suffer. The people in the United States of America are not going to suffer very much. They will suffer to an extent because as long as the war in Ukraine continues, there is going to be spiraling inflation, which will affect Americans as well. But the average person in Wichita, Kansas, or Milwaukee, or Des Moines isn't going to have his or her life tremendously affected. That's not so with the Ukrainians. Listen to what they say. I would suggest you go on the internet and listen to what Professor Jeffrey Sachs has to say about what is going on. He is very measured. He and Professor John Mersheimer are extremely measured. They are academics. They are covered in honours. I would listen also to what Colonel McGregor says, because irrespective of whether you like his politics or not, he is an army man and he knows the reality of what goes on in armies. We are being led down a garden path which is going to result in our destruction if we do not make our desire for peace known. It is awful what is going on in the world at the moment. Russia, according to them, would like a negotiated peace which will protect its territorial integrity and will protect it from being encircled by and threatened by the United States of America's military-industrial complex. Now, I hope that to an extent they are wrong, and they being Professor Sachs especially, and that the Hawks don't really want a nuclear war, although, as Sir Alex Younger has pointed out, if Putin's back is forced against the wall, all bets are off. And as Professor Sachs and Colonel McGregor have pointed out, the fiction that Russia doesn't have a proper army, they have almost as many nuclear weapons as we do. I mean, their standing army hasn't been used yet. Listen to what these Westerners are saying about the reality of what's going on. These are respected Americans. Don't buy the lie. I think we should all be aiming for peace in Ukraine. I think we should stop believing some of the lies that are being spoon-fed to us. For instance, that the Russians blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Biden is there on television a few months ago saying that the Americans were going to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. He's there saying it. It's there. It's there. There's no argument about it. The Russians had no access. The West has access. The Nord Stream pipeline, where it was blown up, is in German territorial waters. I have spoken to people in Europe. The Germans are extremely upset about the fact that they are being strong-armed into having to go down a military path that they don't want to. They have enough people alive who remember the disaster of the Second World War to not want a third world war. I'm afraid, even though America made a contribution to the Second World War, and you suffered some deaths, you suffered no territorial desecration, which is not the case in Europe. Europeans remember. Europe will again be the battlefield. The Germans, I am told, are privately distraught about the pressure being put on them by the United States of Americans in military-industrial complex. And we need to be clear about this. This is not the American people. The American people are being misled by the military-industrial complex, who have tremendous power. President Eisenhower warned about the might of the military-industrial complex in his farewell speech in January 1961 to the American nation. And all these years later, they are still creating havoc elsewhere in the world. You know, do we want peace? If we want peace, we need to make our voices heard. And we need to tell our politicians, we know that we're being lied to. You know, the Liz Trusses and Boris Johnsons of this world and the latest German leaders. But the polls I get, because the polls have a very checkered history with the Russians, and the polls I understand, and I cut them some slack. But everyone else, sorry. There is no reason why this war should be continuing. None. I am not pro-Putin. Let me make that clear. I am pro-living for all of us. And if this continues to the extent that the hawks in the military industrial complex in America would like it to, many of us will die. Just not many Americans, but Europeans, absolutely. Britons, absolutely. We need to wake up and realize that we are in grave danger. For what? So that the military-industrial complex in America can continue to be on a war footing. As Professor Sachs has made clear, it is a war machine. It is a war machine. Hasn't it occurred to us who have lived for a while that practically every military adventure of my lifetime that the American military-industrial complex has involved itself with, it has not been a success for them? Why do they continue doing it? There's a reason why. They don't need success. They simply need activity. They need, for them to perpetuate their existence, they need foreign adventures. And the responsible ones take the view that what they do is not going to result in a third world war. And the irresponsible ones take the view that even if it does result in a third world war and a nuclear war, they and their people won't suffer. So it doesn't matter. Just as how it didn't matter when the Vietnamese suffered, when the Laos people didn't, they suffered, the Cambodians, the Syrians. America attacked, according to Professor Sachs, America is the one that created the problem in Syria to try to bring down the Assad regime because it was pro-Russian. They didn't succeed there. Hopefully, they won't succeed in Ukraine. Hopefully, Ukraine will not be destroyed. Hopefully, Ukraine will become a neutral region, which is what we agreed with Gorbachev initially. We, the West, agreed with Gorbachev. And the Minsk agreements agreed with. Which bit of we are the ones who are breaking our word don't people get? Or Is everybody just supposed to lie back and allow the latest bully to pummel them into the ground? I think it's terrible, and I want to see our involvement brought to a close, our being the British involvement. And I think everybody in the Western world should get in touch with their politicians and try to bring peace to Ukraine by lessening our involvement, not increasing it. Look at how the Ukrainian people are suffering. Don't you think they deserve to not suffer? And what about the Russian people? Why should the Russian people suffer? Why should anybody suffer? I think we need to be informed, and we are not going to be informed if we listen to politicians. We need to listen to people like Professor Jeffrey Sachs and Professor John Mersheimer. Those are the people we need to listen to. Academics who are interested in the good of humanity, the good of the United States of America, the good of the American people, the good of people elsewhere. We should not be buying the lie of hawks whose only interest is the perpetuation of their power, and who suffers is of no significance to them. And I hope that I have made my position clear, and I hope that you fully appreciate that I'm not anti-American, because I'm certainly not. I'm certainly not anti-democratic. I'm very pro the form of democracy, Western democracy. I'm pro freedom. I'm also pro-life. And we need to live. And we can't live if we are going to be annihilated ultimately in a nuclear war that is ultimately triggered by the ambitions and the recklessness of the military-industrial complex. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell. Please keep the questions and comments coming in. And please remember, I am pro the United States of America as well. My nieces and nephew are American. Their children are American. My great niece and great nephew are descendants of John Adams and John Quincy Adams. I'm definitely not anti-American, to those of you who think that because I'm making a distinction against the hawks in the military-industrial complex and the average American person, I am making a distinction, yes, but I am definitely pro-American. I love America. I love the American people. Your press is lying to you. Your press is lying to you. Sad, but true. And I'll tell you better. Unfortunately, a lot of the mainstream media have no choice, because if they don't follow the party line, in quotes, they won't enjoy the benefits of prosperity. So they're willing to sell you, the people, out so that they can continue to have some prosperity and some power. Politics is a dirty business, and it doesn't behoove us to blind ourselves to the reality. Thank you so much for listening. God bless and goodbye.